Hi and welcome. This is Ben Salsi, and we'll be continuing up on Module 2, all about maps in Flutter, where you'll be learning how to integrate Google Maps into your Flutter and to have the best experience throughout your Flutter maps. You'll have a similar experience where you develop Flutter apps just like Bolt, Uber, where you have a Maps app where you can directly add markers to your app, calculate distances, calculate the costings, and be able to add different destinations to your map and be able to know exactly where is the starting point, where the end destinations. So today we'll be going to module 2 of our continuous project. As we mentioned, we will try our best to have up to module 10 so that we have one complete understanding of how you can add maps to your Flutter with the best practices. And this project will be using the clean architecture with the assistance of block to help you manage the states of the block and having the distances and the markers being added at runtime and at real time within your app. So in module 2, we'll be learning how to add or configure maps to your Android project and as well set up the iOS side of things. That includes setting up the Google Maps SDK and also being able to add the API key to enable you to make queries to Google and then you get back responses. This includes getting the distances, getting the polylines, and the rest of the stuff. We also include a place picker to enable you to enable the user select a place, then you can search for a place, and then they can pick up that place so that we can add a marker onto the map with the picked place. We'll be using the block for Flutter. That includes us being able to add dependencies for block and also adding the extension of block to our VS Code, and also be doing the additional setup for timelines for the UI. It's a plugin that we'll be adding in, and then we'll also be doing the adding the injectable, the equatable, and the get it packages that will enable us to do the service locators with ease and also to prevent creation of multiple instances within our app. Then we'll be building up the basic UI, which will be including the header map and then also the different place locations. So here are the resources. Of course, I've included the API key that we'll be using. It's advisable that you create your own because this I'll be deleting it in the course of the course. We'll be including the Flutter block, as I mentioned, the injectable, the get it, the place picker, the shared preferences to manage us, add the markers, and enable us to have a single source of truth where we'll be having the markers stored and then retrieving them at real time. The builder will help us to generate the injectable service locators so that we only get the injectables at whatever point within our app that we may require them. Having mentioned that, we'll get into the project. So let's get into it. So in our previous project, if you're just beginning, you can refer back to module 1, which I'll be adding a link in the description. So let's get started. So in this module 2, what we'll be doing is to do some project cleanup. But before that, let's set up the required procedures for Google Maps, and we'll be doing a little bit of cleanup in here so that we have everything quite correctly set up. So last time we added Google Maps to our project, which is Flutter Google Maps, like so. So we didn't complete up setting up the project. So go Flutter Google Maps. Like so. So as you can see from the instructions in there, what you need to do is first of all head over there to get your API key. I already did this for you, so you just click on get started and then you can go to the console and then you can find every other thing that you required, and then you might want to create your own API key. For this tutorial, I'll be including an API key for that, so you can use this in the meantime, although that API key is temporal, so you might want to create yours. You can always follow these instructions from here. So the first thing is to make minimum SDK to 20, like so. So let's open up our project in Android Studio. So just click on Android folder open it in Android Studio, like so. So as your project opens up in Android Studio, you'll see some of the instructions here. You need also to add this meta tag here with your API key, which you will be required to create one. So this goes inside your application tag. If you're beginning or you're totally new to Android, you don't have to worry. This will be we wouldn't actually be doing so much on the Android side, but at least you should know where to place the meta tag. It should come out of the box for your project when you're loading from your Android Studio. So that's why I recommend that you open it in Android Studio. As that loads up, we can set up the iOS side of things. So you can set up by specifying the API key in your app delegate .m. For our case, we'll be using appdelegate.swift, like so. So we'll be required to copy that line of code over there, and you place it just before the generated plugin registrant. So you can open up your iOS. You can open this in Xcode, but now we just need just one line of code, which we won't really do much on it. So I'll go ahead and copy the API key, like so. Of course, you can create your API key to have a separate API key for Android and a separate key for iOS. I'll do that. This key, again, is a disclaimer. Create your own. Because this will be deleted time. So that having set up that for iOS, create your own. So you might want to create your own by following the instructions in the Google Developer Console, like so. That's done. Now we can do the same to Android by going to the manifest. And then inside the manifest, we can go ahead and pick the meta tag that was placed, like so, from here, and place it inside the application tag, and you replace that with the key, like so. Of course, on a production-based app, you do not want to do this. Instead, you might want to add it inside the debug resource file, so that it's only available on debug, and on production you might want to first get that. Okay, now that having been said, we still have one more thing that we need to do. That's in the build.gradle. The minimum SDK needs to be, Google Maps requires us to have at least 20. So you might want to override the one on Flutter by just specifying that you're within the minimum SDK to be 20, like so. So having done that, give it some time for that to build. Just making sure everything is okay, like so. So we're done setting up the Google Maps for Flutter on the package side. So we can go ahead and clean up the project. So first thing that you're going to do is to install an extension called Flutter block, like so, or just block. I already installed that. So this will you make sure you install this. This will enable you to have at least a shortcut hand way to create the block structure folders in a clean architecture format, which will be making our work easier and do a lot of abstraction, so that we do not have a lot of dependencies within our project. So it will be easier to test our code and do any other thing that we might want to do. So having done that, we will clean up our project. Let's just remove too many of the comments, like so. I'm going to delete this home page from here, the rest of that. So we just now have my app, and I'm also going to rename that. Control find, instead of my app, just call it map app, like so. And then you can call it Flutter maps, like so. And then having installed the plugin that we just installed, the block extension, that it will enable us to create the folder structure for clean architecture. So this will be available on the source code on the GitHub repo, so you'll be able to understand what this means. So I'm going to create new folders. So the first folder is going to be commons, where we're going to put all common resources, including the constants, utils, and stuff like those. And then I'm going to have a new folder also for inside the, sorry, that should be inside the commons, call it utils. That will give us where we can create something like constants dot that like so. And then you can also have something called appfont dot that, where we'll be putting our fonts. Okay, so having created that, we'll be going to the lib folder, and then we create a new folder, we call it home. So the home folder will be a representation of the home default page, and inside there we're going to create a new feature. So if you had installed the plugin correctly, then you will find this menu over here. When you right click from home folder, you have new feature, so that's what we're going to select. So select new feature, we're going to call it maps. So that's going to be our feature. You can see it clearly created some nice folders in there. The home, inside that we have features, and then the features we have the map. So the map comes in with the different folders. So we have the data that represent the data sources, the models, and the repositories, which will be coming directly from the either network or a local database. So data sources could be remote or local. Models represent the models that we'll be using to fetch our data, and the repositories will hold the contract that our data or recall data will come from. The domain will represent the entities, which will extend the equatable and will enable us to extend from whatever model or extend the models that we have from the core data. We have the repositories, and we have the use cases, which will define exactly what the contract has to do. Okay, having set up those, we will have the block, we have the event, and the state. As you notice, we have this guy here complain like, yo, we do not have block already added as a bundle within your project. So we'll be fixing that in a few. Here's where we'll be creating our page and our widget. So let's go ahead and right click on the pages. Let's click add there, say maps home page like that. So this will represent our home page, and in case there will be any widgets, they will go into the widgets folder. So we're going to create a stateless widget. Let's call it maps homepage. So maps homepage. Here you can just return a constant, return a scaffold, and we're going to have a body. Just return a constant center text. Text homepage for now. Okay, now we will go there and say, okay, this is my maps homepage, like so. It's not going to take any parameters as of now, so we're going to delete that. So we have that set up correctly, and now let's add in the required dependencies, which includes block. Ideally, what this will do is to enable us to create events and emit states. So whenever an event is fired up, then we're going to emit states. So there's the event and there's the state. So we're going to do all the operations in there, which includes handling the map and the rest. And when we have a success, a failure, or a loading state, we can emit directly whenever we're handling the data in there. For now, we won't do anything for that, but let's now resolve all the errors that are within our project. So here, instead of my app, it's going to be my map. Sorry, it's going to be map app. Again, we'll be doing the tests after we're done with creating the UI, because we'll be starting with the UI tests. So as of now, actually we might not need this file, but we will need it in the near future. So let's go ahead and add in the required dependencies. So the first dependency we're going to add is the block dependency, which is going to get rid of the errors we have. So just go and search Flutter block. So block Flutter. Like so. So installation. Okay, we have Flutter block. Let's install that. Again, the other dependency that you might need is called equatable and then injectable. So you say Flutter equatable. So this is some functional programming stuff that will enable us to create only unique instances without recreating the existing ones. So we have that. Let's add it in there. And then we have injectable that will provide for us dependency injection. Injectable, like so. Installation, like so. And then the other one is timelines that will enable us to create the nice drop of points. So timelines, Flutter. So we'll be able to create the nice, oh sorry, that should be a library. Okay, something similar to that. Installation, have that. And then the other thing is called shared preferences, where we'll be storing and having a single source of truth. Shared preferences, installation, like so. And we have get it, the service locator. So there should be get it Flutter. Installation. Have it there. And lastly, we're going to have the place picker, which will enable us to pick places whenever so we say Google Maps, Flutter place picker, which enables us to pick places whenever the user wants to select a place on a map. So it's called Google Maps place picker MB. So I think those, and we might require some dependencies on the dev dependencies. That includes the injectable generator. So say Flutter generator. This is going to fall under the dev dependencies, as you can see. Injectable generator. Over there. And also build runner dev dependencies. So installation, like so. Yeah, right. As you can see already, the block error already went, so we have a problem here. Saying build runner. Okay, you can downgrade to around 3.3 so that we have that support, because the data SDK is a bit old on my machine. So yeah, we have that resolved. Right, we have all the dependencies set up, and you can see the just import like so. So we have imported Flutter block, and think for this tutorial we will be so we have just set up the maps like so, maps for maps block. We set up the home page. So the first thing that we'll do is just to make sure we have the map up and running, and by that we'll be directly calling Google Maps, and it will be requiring us to supply the initial camera position. So just say camera position, and the target, you need to supply the target. So I'm going to constants, and then I'll be doing a constant sorry, it's constant latitude, longitude. Going to call that default location equals to, and I'm going to look out for the default location of Nairobi. So say Nairobi, and latitude, longitude. Sorry. So I have that. This is the LAT. I'll supply over there. So that's going to be LAT-LNG. So the latitude is going to be that, and then the longitude is going to be this, like so. So we have the default location, and I'm going to supply that as the default location, like so. So we're going to run our app, just make sure everything works fine. And I think that will be good for this tutorial, and I think in the next module we will continue to build our UI, and if possible finish up the map and adding the UI for adding the destinations, and if possible add dummy destinations. And also we can do one test to ensure that we just have only one widget, which is the Google Maps widget, to ensure that it's just one at any given point whenever we load our app. And then also in the next tutorial we will be making sure that we have at least the controls for the map, including the zoom in, zoom out, especially when you're combining between the UI on the list, because we'll be having a list and a map. Those two guys don't go along together, because a list has the way you can scroll up and down a map, items on the list, and a map has also its own way of dragging up and down a map. So when you combine the two, you might not have the best user experience. So in short, we'll be deciding and telling Google and say this is your maximum extent and the list is your maximum extent. And so when someone is dragging, don't clash. Let each one drag by its own, and let the list drag by its own, and then we have the best user experience. So yeah, boom, we have our nice Google Maps app like so, and we can drag it in any way. And congratulations for making it to this point, because when you already can see this map, it means everything is set up and we're so ready to now manipulate and use our Google Maps, resize it. Of course, in the next tutorial we'll be making it half, and then we will be having the different multiple destinations on the map as shown. Thank you again for joining in. This was module 2, and we just added the maps, the block, the additional setups, and in the next tutorial we'll be doing more refined UI that represent what we already saw in the first tutorial. Thank you so much for joining in. Make sure to subscribe, and if you have any questions, you can always reach out to my LinkedIn or my email, or you can download BenSalsi app from Play Store so that we can connect and talk more. Thank you. See you in the next module.